Jerusalem has 8 gates, 7 of them open and close normally. People walk through them every day. Tourists, residents, merchants, pilgrims. 1 gate does not. The Golden Gate, the only eastern entrance to the Temple Mount, has been sealed with 16 feet of solid stone since the year 1541. That is almost 500 years. But here is the detail that changes everything. The man who sealed it was not Jewish. He was not Christian. He was Suleiman the Magnificent, Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, the most powerful ruler in the Middle East at that time. And according to multiple historical accounts, he sealed that specific gate for one specific reason: to stop the Jewish Messiah from entering Jerusalem. Think about that for a moment. A Muslim emperor, ruling over territories stretching from Hungary to Persia, took the time to personally order 1 gate blocked, not for military defense, not for architectural reasons, to prevent a prophecy from being fulfilled. The question is not whether this happened. The historical record confirms it did. The question is, why would the most powerful ruler in the region take such extreme measures against someone he did not believe in? Why seal the gate? And why did he build a cemetery directly in front of it? The answer requires us to examine something written 25 centuries earlier, something that describes, with remarkable precision, what would happen at that specific gate. Around 593 BC, the prophet Ezekiel was living in exile. He was in Babylon, far from Jerusalem, far from the temple. The temple had not yet been destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, but Ezekiel already knew what was coming, because he saw something that would not make complete sense for centuries. In chapter 10 of his book, verses 18 and 19, Ezekiel describes something extraordinary. He sees the glory of God, the visible presence that had dwelt in the temple since Solomon's time, leaving, not through just any exit, through the east gate. Specifically, the text states, "Then the glory of the Lord departed from the threshold of the temple and stood over the cherubim. And the cherubim lifted their wings and rose up from the earth in my sight. And they stood at the entrance of the east gate of the Lord's house. The glory moved east. It paused at the eastern gate." And then, in chapter 11, verse 23, Ezekiel records the final departure. "The glory of the Lord went up from the midst of the city and stood over the mountain which is east of the city." That mountain is the Mount of Olives. The glory left through the east gate, paused over the Mount of Olives, and departed from the earth. This was not a small detail to the Jewish people. The glory, the Shekinah, was the visible manifestation of God's presence among them. When it left, something fundamental changed. The temple would be destroyed 14 years later, and according to historical records, that glory never returned to the second temple, even after it was rebuilt. But Ezekiel's vision did not end with departure. He also saw return. In chapter 43 of Ezekiel, the prophet is shown something different. He is shown the glory coming back. Verses 1 through 4. "Afterward he brought me to the gate that faces toward the east. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the way of the east. His voice was like the sound of many waters, and the earth shone with his glory. And the glory of the Lord entered the temple through the gate facing east." The same direction, the same gate. The pattern is explicit and intentional. The glory departed through the east to the Mount of Olives. The glory returns from the east through the same gate. This is not interpretation. This is what the text states. But then comes the instruction that has puzzled scholars for millennia. Immediately after describing the glory's return, Ezekiel receives a specific command. Chapter 44, verses 1 and 2. "Then he brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, the one facing east, and it was shut. The Lord said to me, 'This gate shall remain shut. It must not be opened. No one may enter through it.' And then, the reason, it is to remain shut, because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it. The command is absolute. The gate must stay closed, not temporarily, permanently, because the glory has passed through it. But this raises an enormous question. When did that happen? When did the glory of God enter Jerusalem through the eastern gate? The Second Temple stood for centuries after Ezekiel. There is no historical record of the Shekinah glory filling it, the way it filled Solomon's temple. So when did the entry occur that required the gate to be sealed? That question has divided interpreters for 2,000 years. Approximately 70 years after Ezekiel, another prophet wrote something that would later be connected to this mystery. Zechariah, chapter 9, verse 9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. Righteous and having salvation is he, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. This passage describes a king entering Jerusalem, not on a war horse, which would signify conquest, on a donkey, which signified peace. The king would come humbly from the east, and he would bring salvation. Now consider what the gospel accounts describe. Jesus of Nazareth, approaching Jerusalem for the final time. He was coming from Bethany. Bethany is located on the eastern slope of the Mount of Olives. East of the city, he descended the mount, riding on a young donkey that had never been ridden before. The crowds gathered. They waved palm branches. They spread their cloaks on the road before him, and they shouted, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. According to the Gospel of Matthew, this happened specifically to fulfill Zechariah's prophecy. The text states explicitly, this took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet. Weinian then quotes Zechariah 9:9. The direction of entry is clear. From the east, from the Mount of Olives, through the eastern approach to the temple. For those who accept the gospel accounts as historical, this creates an extraordinary pattern. In Ezekiel's vision, the glory departed through the east gate to the Mount of Olives. In the gospel accounts, Jesus entered from the Mount of Olives through the eastern approach. Same direction, same route, reversed, as if retracing the steps of departure, but in reverse. Now we return to the year 1541. Suleiman the Magnificent was rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. The city had been under Muslim control for centuries. Since the conquest in 638 AD, the Crusaders had briefly held it. But by Suleiman's time, it was firmly Ottoman territory. Yet Jewish tradition was well known throughout the region, and that tradition stated something very specific. The Messiah would enter Jerusalem through the eastern gate. According to multiple historical accounts, Suleiman gave a direct order: seal the eastern gate, block it completely. 16 feet of solid stone were placed in the entrance. The gate that had been open was shut, and it was not a temporary closure. It was intended to be permanent. But Suleiman did not stop there. In front of the sealed gate, a Muslim cemetery was established. Graves were placed directly in the path that any approaching person would have to walk. Why a cemetery? The reasoning was theological and very specific. According to Jewish tradition, Elijah the prophet would return before the Messiah, and according to some interpretations, Elijah was considered a descendant of Aaron, making him a priest. Jewish priests, the Kohanim, are bound by specific purity laws. One of those laws prohibits walking through a cemetery. Contact with the dead renders a priest ritually impure. So the logic was this: if Elijah cannot pass through the cemetery, he cannot precede the Messiah. If Elijah does not come, the Messiah cannot enter. The gate is sealed. The cemetery blocks the path. The prophecy is prevented. That was the theory. The gate remained sealed. The cemetery remains to this day. But the story does not end in 1541. In December 1917, British forces were advancing on Jerusalem during World War I. The Ottoman Empire still controlled the city, but they were losing ground. General Edmund Allenby commanded the Egyptian Expeditionary Force, and he had orders from Prime Minister Lloyd George: take Jerusalem by Christmas. According to documented accounts, the Turkish military made plans to defend the city. Part of that defensive plan involved creating a supply line through the Kidron Valley, and to do that, they would need to open the sealed eastern gate. Explosives were reportedly prepared. Workers were assigned. The gate that had been closed for nearly 400 years was about to be opened. What happened next has been recorded differently by different sources. Some accounts say British aircraft flew over the city, dropping leaflets demanding surrender. Some say the signature on those leaflets, Allenby, looked similar to Arabic words meaning prophet of God. Some say the Turkish forces simply lost the will to fight. What is documented? The gate was not opened. The explosives were not detonated. Jerusalem surrendered on December 9, 1917, without a single shot fired within the city walls. General Allenby entered the city 2 days later. He entered through the Jaffa Gate and on the western side, and he entered on foot. He specifically refused to ride his horse through the gate. When asked why, he reportedly said that only one person should enter Jerusalem as a conquering king. The eastern gate remained sealed. It remains sealed today. Now let us be precise about what the text states and what it does not state. Ezekiel 44 describes a gate facing east that must remain shut. The reason given is that the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it. The Hebrew grammar uses a past tense construction, has entered, not will enter, has entered. The text does not specify exactly when this entry occurred. The text does not specify whether the current gate in Jerusalem's eastern wall is the same gate Ezekiel described in his vision. Some scholars argue that Ezekiel's vision refers entirely to a future millennial temple, a temple that has not yet been built. The dimensions Ezekiel provides do not match the current structure. The current Golden Gate was constructed in the 6th or 7th century AD, centuries after the temple's destruction in 70 AD. These are legitimate questions. The text provides patterns, not calendars. It provides principles, not newspaper headlines. But the pattern itself is remarkable. One gate, sealed for almost 500 years. The only sealed gate of 8. And the reason given historically for sealing it was to prevent a prophesied entry, while the reason given in the text for keeping it sealed is that an entry already occurred. Let us state what can be verified by anyone who visits Jerusalem today. The Golden Gate exists. It faces east. It is located in the eastern wall of the Temple Mount. It has been sealed since 1541. A Muslim cemetery stands directly before it. It is the only sealed gate of Jerusalem's 8 gates. Now let us state what the biblical texts record. Ezekiel described God's glory departing through an eastern gate to the Mount of Olives. Ezekiel described that glory returning through the same eastern gate. Ezekiel recorded a divine command that the gate must remain shut after the Lord entered through it. Zechariah described a king entering Jerusalem from the east, humble, riding on a donkey. The Gospels record Jesus entering Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, riding on a donkey, while crowds proclaimed him the Son of David. A pattern emerges: departure through the east, return through the east, a gate that must remain sealed because someone passed through it, and a gate that remains sealed to this day. The question is whether these elements are connected or coincidental. The question is not whether Ezekiel wrote these words. The manuscripts confirm he did. The question is not whether the gate is sealed. Any visitor to Jerusalem can verify it personally. The question is not whether Suleiman built the cemetery. Historical records confirm that as well. The question is what the sealed gate means. If the gate was sealed to prevent the Messiah from entering, and the gate remains sealed, then either the prevention worked, or the entry already occurred, and the sealing came too late. Ezekiel's text says the gate must stay shut because the Lord has entered. Past tense. That grammatical detail has occupied scholars for centuries, and it leads to a question that cannot be avoided. If the entry already happened, who entered? And if it hasn't happened yet, how will a sealed gate with a cemetery in front of it be opened? We began with a simple observation. Jerusalem has 8 gates, 7 open normally. One has been sealed for almost 500 years. with a cemetery planted directly in front of it. The reason given by history for sealing it was to stop a prophecy. But the text that prophecy comes from says the gate must be shut because the entry already happened, which means either the Sultan was too late or the final fulfillment is still unfolding. There is more to examine. Zechariah chapter 14 describes what happens when the Lord returns. Verse 4 states, "On that day his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives, which lies before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two, from east to west, by a very wide valley, the same mountain where Ezekiel saw the glory pause before departing, the same mountain Jesus descended from when he entered Jerusalem, the same mountain that stands directly across from the sealed golden gate." There are connections between Zechariah 14 and what Ezekiel describes, connections that suggest the sealed gate may not remain sealed forever, but that requires its own investigation. For now, the gate remains sealed, the cemetery remains in place, and the question remains open. If this investigation raised questions you hadn't considered before, leave the word sealed in the comments, and tell me, which detail surprised you most? The Sultan's reasoning, the 1917 incident, or the grammar of Ezekiel's prophecy? If you haven't subscribed yet, this would be a good moment. There is much more ahead.